Hey everybody, this is going to be a quick video, but before we get started, I need to make a quick announcement. I'm taking a short break from the internet to take a vacation and a road trip. Every so often, we need to get away from the computer, to unplug, and to get out and get some fresh air. I try to do this at least 3 times a year, and now's the time to go on a short walkabout. I recommend everybody to do something similar at least twice a year. It's good for one's mental health and rejuvenates the spirit. Now, with that out of the way, let's dive in. As a former men's rights activist, I can say with authority that in the United States, the men's movement has been a massive failure. Just about every campaign the men's movement has embarked on has failed, sometimes spectacularly. This is because of the insurmountable opposition from within the feminist movement. Not only because the feminist movement is funded by the government and the men's movement is not, but because feminism rules Western society, not just in the United States, but in every other industrialized country in the Western world. However, just a few days ago, on February 22nd, 2019, the men's movement achieved a major victory in the United States federal court. Let's talk about it. According to the Times of San Diego-based group wins U.S. suit male-only draft unconstitutional, and this article was published on February 23, 2019. And it states, even though America hasn't had a military draft since 1973, men, but not women, are required to register for the Selective Service. A federal judge Friday said that must change, calling the system unconstitutional but not requiring women 18 to 25 to register. U.S. District Judge Gray H. Miller in Houston agreed with the San Diego-based National Coalition for Men and granted its request for summary judgment in a class action suit. The male-only registration requirement of the Military Selective Service Act, 50 U.S.C. subsection 3802 subsection A, violates the Due Process Clause of the Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution, says Miller's final judgment. Women are now allowed in combat, so this decision is long overdue, said Mark Angelucci, attorney for NCFM. After decades of sex discrimination against men in the Selective Service, the courts have finally found it unconstitutional to force men only to register. Indeed, Miller wrote, while historical restrictions on women in the military may have justified past discrimination, men and women are now similarly situated for purposes of a draft or registration for a draft. If there was ever a time to discuss the place of women in the armed services, that time has passed. Either they need to get rid of the draft registration, or they need to require women to do the same thing men do, Angelucci said. Angelucci said that despite the absence of the draft, men still face prison, fines, and denial of federal loans for not registering or for not updating the government of their whereabouts. Since women will be required to register with the Selective Service, he said Saturday in a statement, they should face the same repercussions as men for any non-compliance. Now, with that said, here's a copy of the order itself that was filed in the United States District Court, Southern District of Texas in the Houston Division. Again, it's the National Coalition for Men versus the Selective Service system. Basically, it appears as though the National Coalition for Men have sued the United States government. And of course, there's the case number, and this is the final judgment. And as you can see under subsection A right here, it says, the male-only registration requirement of the Military Selective Services Act, 50 U.S.C. subsection 3802 subsection A, violates the Due Process Clause of the Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution. And then, of course, it was signed February 22nd, 2019, by the Honorable Gray H. Miller. So I'm going to go ahead and put links to both of these things so everybody can take a look at them. And even though it is a declaratory judgment and not an injunction, this won't be the end of the conversation with regard to drafting women into the military. I think this is a huge step in the right direction, and it is a huge victory for men's rights activists. So as you can see, while the men's movement for decades had no real major achievements to its name, on February 22nd, 2019, a federal judge agreed that the men's-only military draft is unconstitutional. Again, this is a major victory for men. This is why I always say that in order to combat the feminist hypocrisy that controls our society, men need to start filing court challenges to these discriminatory and often unconstitutional laws used to destroy men's lives. Now that we have a conservative U.S. Supreme Court and Ginsburg is on the downhill, American nationalists of conscience can use the courts to unwind the feminist bigotry that currently controls our society today, and hold these bigots in power accountable for their discrimination against men and boys. Today is a new day, and while the struggle to protect men against discrimination will be long and hard, there is a new hope. And now that more and more Americans of conscience are waking up, both men and women, they are realizing that this is a fight that can be won. And as a result, they're joining the effort to stop the systemic discrimination against healthy masculinity and to protect our men and boys. I'm DDJ, and this is your dose of misandry today.